So you train in the NOBULL Outwork or the NOBULL Impact and you want to change it up. What should you go with? Here are 6 options that I recommend that I think perform a little bit better than these shoes for CrossFit, lifting, and just general training. And so for CrossFit, what's going to outperform a NOBULL shoe? And don't get me wrong, you can definitely wear the Impact and the Outwork for CrossFit, but I just think in 2025, we do have stronger shoes. And so 2 models that I think outperform those models include the Rad 1 V2 and the Tier C XT2. Now, which should you go with depending on what you want? With the Rad 1 V2, this is going to be the best option if you want the most well-rounded shoe, I think, for CrossFit WODs right now. This model is going to feel pretty good for most WODs that have a lot of jumping, some short runs, and they work exceptionally well for lifting and any form of like cross-training or more dynamic movement. With this shoe, you have a solid grip with this herringbone tread patterning on the outsole. The swell foam midsole gives you a nice blend of stability and versatility. I actually think that this model feels a little bit more versatile than the Rad 1 V1 if you ever considered that shoe or wore that shoe. And the upper security I think is really good in this model, and it does a pretty good job with general durability. Now when it comes to sizing in the shoe, true to size should be the call for most individuals. So narrow, medium, and slightly wider feet, true to size in this shoe. Now if you notoriously find that shoes fit snug on the forefoot, a pro tip with the Rad 1 V2 is to actually take out the insole. It'll give you a little bit more room. And so if you need a little bit more volume through the forefoot, especially in your trainer, that is a move with the Rad 1 V2 to give it a little bit more space. Now with the Tier C XT2, this is going to be a really good well-rounded shoe with a slight bias towards lifting in the context of CrossFit. And so with this model, like the Rad 1 V2, you get a good level of tread with the outsole. The durability tends to be pretty solid with the outsole wraps and the TPU wraps around the midfoot. And you also have the Surge Energy Foam midsole in this model. Now the midsole comparison between the Rad 1 V2 here is it's going to be a little bit more dense. So it will give you a bit more stability, a little bit more ground feedback, and feel a little bit more dense on the feet when you are lifting, jumping, etc. So if that's something that you want and you are after with your CrossFit shoes, and so for example, if you really love the Outwork and that was something you really liked about that shoe was that dense feel, then the Tier C XT2 can be a really good option. Also with this shoe, it has a normal and a wide version. And so when talking about sizing of this shoe, if you have a narrow or medium foot width, the normal version should be fine for you. If you have an E to double E width, go with the wide version. And if you want to hedge your bets, I think going up a half size can be a smart move in the CXT2. But again, the Rad 1 V2 and the Tier CXT2, I think both outperform the Impact and the Outwork for CrossFit WODs, and they're definitely worth looking into in 2025. All right, so now if you're looking for a shoe that's not an Outwork or an Impact for lifting and just, more general cross-training workouts, but with a nice blend of stability for mostly strength and power movements, what should you go with? So the 2 options I have up here include the Innovate F-Lite Max and the Adidas Dropset 3. Both of these models can be fantastic for lifting context and some general cross-training work. Think of like a little bit of an athletic style bias or CrossFit bias with your training. Now with the Innovate F-Lite Max, a few callouts with this shoe that make it pretty awesome is number 1, you have the Power Flow Max midsole in this shoe. This midsole I think does a really good job at blending stability and versatility. I have trained well over 450 pounds in the shoe without issues, and you also have a TPU stabilizer in the heel of the shoe. Now as opposed to models like the Metcon 8 and 9 that I think that TPU can be really off-putting, this model doesn't feel as aggressive, so you do get a nice stability but a little bit more versatility in the shoe. And then 2 other things to like about this model outside of the stability and the midsole is the toe box width. If you have a wider toe box, this can be a fantastic option to go with. So if you've been feeling cramped in the Outwork or the Impact, this model I think will feel very much more spacious in the forefoot for you to allow full toe splay. And then number 3, the overall durability of this shoe tends to do a really good job despite having a lighter weight upper. So we have a lightweight breathable mesh upper, which is great for hotter settings, but we also have this Met cradle here on the midfoot that helps protect you from just general wear, gives you additional lockdown, and you have these outsole lips here on the lateral medial side for additional support. All right, so now when it comes to sizing in the Innovate F-Lite Max, narrow feet should be safe going true to size. Medium and wider feet, I would say size up a half size in this shoe to hedge your bets. This model has notoriously run a little bit short, so you are going to want to probably size up a half size in this shoe by default, especially if you have a wider foot. With the Adidas Dropset 3, this is definitely going to be a much more lifting bias shoe with a slight blend of like athletic style work, especially if you're on the forefoot. But with this model, 3 things to like include number 1, the dual density midsole. So back here in the heel, you have a very dense, stable heel, and then up here in the forefoot, you have a lower stack height and a little bit more of a playful and flexible heel. This gives the shoe a nice blend of stability for squats and weightlifting, but then a little bit more playfulness if you're doing broad jumps, jump rope, or anything on the forefoot where you're gonna be really driving through the foot, or doing any form of multi-directional work where you have a heavy forefoot bias. The second thing to like with the shoe is if you like arch support with your training shoes, this can be a really good option to go with. So if, for example, in the Impact and Outwork, you constantly feel you're kind of maybe medially rolling in, this can be a good option to go with. You're gonna get a little bit more arch support here with this medial lip here on the midfoot of the shoe. And then number 3, the overall weight of the shoe tends to do a really good job, but the breathability and toe box also work great in this model as well. So you have a lighter weight shoe, you have a lot of breathability here with the cutout. Now that can be a con with my daily wear folks who live in wetter climates. I talk about this in all of my Drop Set 3 reviews, but it does help save weight on the shoe, which I do like for a general training context. And you also have a slightly wider forefoot in the shoe compared to the Outwork and the Impact. In the Adidas Drop Set 3, when it comes to sizing, I think narrow, medium, and slightly wider feet should be safe going true to size. Now, if you're pushing a double E foot width comfortably and a little bit more, go up a half size in this model. It should give you a little bit more toe box room. And again, for my flat foot folks out there, if you don't like any arch, you might want to pass on this shoe because this medial sidewall can feel a little bit aggressive for the context of your needs if you just can't stand having any form of pressing into that medial midfoot. The Drop Set 3 and the F-Lite Max can be fantastic options to go with over the Outwork and the Impact if you want a shoe primarily for lifting with some cross training and maybe some CrossFit sprinkled in. All right, so we've talked CrossFit, we've talked lifting, and we've talked general training. Let's get a little bit more specific. So this is for all of my Outwork fans out there. If you like that shoe for its simplicity and for its slightly denser midsole and lower to the ground feel, two options that I think outperform it include number 1, the Born Primitive Savage 1, and then the Haze Trainer from Strike Movement. Now, with the Born Primitive Savage 1, 3 reasons why I like this shoe more than the Outwork. Number 1, this shoe has a wider toe box. So if you want a little bit more room for toe splay and letting your feet do their things, I think this model's toe box feels a lot better. And if you need a little bit more room in this shoe, you can take out the insole and it's gonna give it a much more spacious fit. The second reason why I like this shoe is it's pretty dang bomb-proof with its durability. This model tends to last a while and its upper does a good job at resisting abrasion, while the outsole has done a really good job at standing up to a lot of different contexts that I put these through, whether that's for gym workouts, pickleball, or outdoor training sessions. So durability wise, the Born Primitive Savage 1 I think is also really solid, which I think also the Outwork has. So if you are used to the durability of the Outwork, I think you're gonna like the Born Primitive Savage 1 as well. The third reason why I like this shoe is its overall flexibility and its comfort. I think this shoe actually feels a little bit better on the feet compared to the Outwork, has a little bit more play and flex through the sole. And so if you want something for heavier squats, lunges, split squats, power cleans, anything where you're getting a little bit more flexy through the foot, or even plyometrics where you like a slightly denser feel but want a lot of flex, this model can do a really good job. Now, when it comes to sizing of this shoe, narrow, medium, and wider feet should be safe going true to size. If you have a 2E foot width or a thicker foot or high instep, you may want to go up a half size and take out the insole to get a little bit more comfort in this shoe. Now, in the Haze Trainer, 3 reasons why I like this shoe is number 1, its overall appearance. As opposed to the Outwork, which I know you can wear on a day-to-day basis, it's just not a shoe that I would necessarily want to like travel with or wear more casually. The Haze Trainer I think ticks that box really well. The jacquard knit upper looks very clean, there's minimalist branding, and so if you want a shoe that you can wear out and about, travel with, and just dress up a little bit more formally, the Haze Trainer can do a good job if you want that all-in-one shoe. The second reason why I like the Haze Trainer is its overall minimal feel. If you're big on training barefoot here and there or wearing barefoot shoes often, but you do like having a training shoe in your lineup, and that's why you've used the Outwork, the Haze Trainer can be a really good option. With the Cush 50 midsole, it has a nice density to it, and it flexes really well from the jump, so it breaks in really fast. Mix that in with the upper, and you have a really comfortable and more minimal vibe with your footwear here. The third reason why I like the Haze Trainer is if you like a more sock-like fit with your footwear, this can be a really good option to go with. The tongue gusset of this shoe is pretty aggressive, which can turn off thicker feet and higher insteps. But for my folks who have normal arches or just lower volume feet, this shoe is going to give you a really nice level of lockdown. Now, when it comes to sizing in the Haze Trainer, the sizing of the shoe can be a little polarizing, so bear with me here. For narrow, medium, and slightly wider feet, you should be safe going true to size in this model. If you have a 2E plus foot width, you may want to go up a half size. Now, something to note with the Haze Trainer is that we do have a beam-like shape with the last of the shoe. That can be kind of off-putting for certain folks who want a bit more width through the midfoot. And then also something to think about with the shoe is that if you have a very high arch or super high instep, you may find the tongue gusset to actually be a little bit too tight for you. So you might have to break them in a little bit longer. They might feel feel very snug out of the jump. So be warned, if you do fall into that foot anatomy, expect that with the Hayes trainer regarding its fit. All right, y'all, that wraps up this NOBULL Outwork and Impact Alternatives video. Now, this video is not intended to give you buyer's remorse if you train in NOBULL shoes. However, I do have a lot of folks come on videos and they say, well, what about NOBULL? What would you go with instead? And I wanted to film a video that kind of answered that with rationale as to which shoes I would go with certain performance categories. If you have additional questions on this video, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, drop subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.